rocking. You've 90 days. You'll get your music kicking. Your friends will be amazed. It's 50/90. That's why HFO is here. It's 50/90. It's 50/90. Good evening, Riako Music and Array of Emotions. Hello, Mel and David. Riako Music says, your glasses. Yeah, I noticed in last week's show that I spent most of my time muttering at the microphone and holding my head like this because the glasses I was using were only in focus when I was holding my head like this. So I've gone back to my previous glasses, which are 5-ish years old, and now I'm 60. Not only do I get free prescriptions on the National Health Service, I also get free eye tests. So I have booked myself an eye test at my friendly neighbourhood spectacles provider, who I have gone to for probably about 10 years. And it's well past time I got myself a new pair of glasses. But I've been wearing these for a couple of days. And they're a bit sort of David Tennant, Doctor Who-ish. And I was hanging out outdoors with two of my siblings yesterday and their various extended families. Hello. I have viewers I didn't know about. So it was rather nice to see them all. It's the first time I've seen any of them this year. Riako Music says, did you notice a shift in your vision? Well, yeah, it was kind of more a fact that these are photochromic, and it was like, oh, it's going dark in here. And I realised when I took them off that they were actually sunglasses. So these are about 5-6 years old, but they're doing the job. And if I'm not looking down my nose at the monitors, that is an improvement on the stream. Hey, French Doge, new glasses noise. Well, they're old glasses, but I just felt like a bit of a change. And yeah, there's a certain amount of narcissism involved in saying, not a good look on camera, staring down your nose at the monitor. So if you're new to this, if you're watching on Twitch, and Noaja, good evening. It's really nice to see the gang all dropping in. Thank you so much for dropping in, and it really means a lot. After yesterday's kind of family gathering, a bit maudlin today, may have had 1 or 2 glasses of wine with the pizza that I had with tea, and nearly cried like a baby watching How to Train Your Dragon this afternoon. So it's been that kind of weekend. But I'm cool. I'm good. And you're all here and I'm here, and we're going to be talking about music again because that's kind of what we do here. So if you're on Twitch and watching this, hello, thank you for stopping by. This is kind of my Sunday night show is for people who are taking part in the 50/90 Songwriting Challenge, which is a songwriting challenge that's been going over 10 years now, that runs from the 4th of July to the 1st of October. That's 90 days. The challenge is you write 50 pieces of music, songs, instrumentals, movie trailers, whatever. you write 50 pieces of songs in the 90 days between July the 4th and October the 1st. And this show is really for people who are doing that, who are going, well, yeah, kind of doing it, but I want to be a bit better at what I'm doing. So hopefully this is a show that is going to help you. Ryaka Music says, I've never seen How to Train Your Dragon. They are very good. I haven't seen the series, which I know is available on CBBC over here in the UK, but really enjoyed the films. And I've been listening to one of my favourite podcasts, which is called The Art of the Score, and it's done by a bunch of guys in Australia. And family gathering yesterday was the other side of the country. I spent 9 hours in the car driving, and what made that bearable was listening to multiple episodes of The Art of the Score. And the last one I listened to was dealing with John Powell's score for How to Train Your Dragon. So it was like, oh, I need to watch that again. So I did, and it was wonderful. It's a DreamWorks show. I think it's directed by Chris Sanders and a bunch of other people. It's got Jay Baruchel in it. It's got a whole bunch of other people that you go. Tina Fey's in it, I think, as well. But really enjoy them. So I watched that today and then thought, okay, what am I going to do this evening? And for a while I was thinking about doing something about movie scores, because Art of the Score, and I don't know if you were aware of this fact, but the trailer for the Robert Pattinson The Batman, so it's got the definite article Batman, dropped this weekend from DC. And yeah, I'll probably go and see it. It looks entertaining. They're still very dark and moody, and yes, it's all Frank Miller's fault, but the trailer soundtrack actually inspired me to start a new track for 5090 this year, which is just going to be called every movie trailer soundtrack from the 2020s, because let's just say it owes Hans Zimmer a few beers for a start. But we'll come into that. Another Ryako Music says, oh God, not another Batman. Yeah, we've got Robert Pattinson as the Batman. I also learned this week that Mr. Affleck will be returning as Batman in the Flash movie. God knows why DC think we need a Flash movie, but apparently we're getting a Flash movie. Yeah, I've got a squeaky chair. So, yes, oh God, another Batman. An Array of Emotion says, when will they stop making Batman movies? I mean, fair play. If I just lean over here, I bought myself, nice leather-bound editions of, what's this one? Batman Year One, Wanted Santa Claus Dead or Alive, and The Dark Knight Returns. And, I mean, they're glorious pieces of work. And at least Frank Miller understood that Batman does not use projectile weapons or firearms. Something that does not appear to have been understood by DC showrunners. But hey-ho. So I'm much more a Brian Bolland Joker type stuff. But somebody pointed out that they'd got, I've forgotten the name of the actor, but guy who was it? Colin Farrell, is it? And they've basically made him up to look like Richard Kint. And somebody said, why didn't you just get Richard Kint? And it's like, That's a very good question, but will we find out? That's art, yo. I think, as Ryako Music says, basically sums it up. So, if you're a new viewer, you have by now realised that we get distracted and we go down rabbit holes, and as such, as with the dogs in the Pixar movie Up, the refrain at this point is always squirrel. So let's return to the point in hand at the moment, which is you guys are trying to make 50 songs in 90 days, and I'm here to try and help you. But like Array of Emotions says, like, there did not need to be any more Batman movies after the Michael Keaton ones. Exactly. Absolutely exactly. Right. So, if you're watching on YouTube, and this is kind of after the effect, and I've probably spent more than a few hours editing down all the diatribes and hesitancy and ums and ers and anyways and so that I use to desperately pad out when I can't actually think of what it is I'm going to say next, then hello and thank you for subscribing if you've already subscribed. If not, please subscribe on YouTube. Have I got any more followers on Twitch since Thursday's show? No. This is not good enough. I need more followers on Twitch, please. I've set myself a kind of informal goal that I want to get to 50 followers by Christmas, New Year-ish, because that 50 followers thing is the only part of getting to affiliate status that I've actually yet to do. And that would be nice. But anyway, Ryako Music says, did Patterson have bat nibs? No, he's really basically just being Cedric. Is it Cedric? Whoever he was in Harry Potter, he just stands there and looks moody. But, yeah, it's too dark and it's too portentous and it's too pompous, and I will play you in a minute what I've done in terms of taking the mickey out of that style of music. But on Thursday, on my other show, which is a more general, hey, this is me making music stuff, I returned to my pet topic of actually making stuff on camera as it happens, and I did a bunch of stuff based on a series of books. Don't go away. These books, in fact. So, the first one is called Embers of War. There you go. The second one is called Fleet of Knives. And the third one, which I finished reading this week, is called Light of Impossible Stars. Space opera on the grand scale. And they're written by a very lovely chap called Gareth Powell, who lives down the road in an outskirt of Bristol. And I vaguely know Gareth, and we're friends on Facebook. And when I tweeted about this track at the weekend, Gareth actually noticed and retweeted me and said, "How cool is that?" So thank you, Gareth. That was very nice, very sweet. So, Embers of War, it's about a sentient spaceship called the Trouble Dog, which has developed a conscience and doesn't want to be a warship anymore. And it's the saga of the Trouble Dog and its crew and their fight against a threat on a galactic scale to all sorts of different things. So very much in the Ian M. Banks or tradition of space opera, and lots of humanity, lots of introspection. What does it mean to be a warrior? What does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be a sentient spaceship? Highly recommended. And when we left off on Thursday. I'd kind of got, the bare bones of a song after, about 2.5 hours? But I've been playing with it since then. So here we have what I ended up with. And yeah, kind of more or less there, but listening to it back, there were some things that struck me. And listening to something back and listening in general is going to be the theme of tonight's show. It's going to be about using these things. It's going to be about learning to hear what a song has and what a song doesn't have. So that's setting out my theme for today. So it's all about hearing what's going on, using your ears. But so an array of emotions says, if sentient spaceships are your thing, read Anne Leckie. Been there, done that. Yep. Great series of novels. Really, really impressed with those. Plus tea. And really interesting viewpoints on gender or absence of gender. So again, and in fact, so where have we got? Because they're all up here as well. Yeah, they're buried under quite a few other books because it's a while since I read the Ancillary Mercy, Ancillary Sword, and Ancillary Justice. Very worth reading. So, Squirrel, again, as Array of Emotion says. Okay, let me play you what I ended up with on... Well, it was kind of Friday I spent doing this, so here it is. I've seen whole planets burn. I've watched my comrades die. Nothing I did was my concern. Mine to reason why. If you have peace, then I'll take any. But I was born to fight. Now I'm the one against the many. And who's to say I'm right? Tell ourselves we're righteous. We say our cause is just. But when our weapons turn against us, should we do the things we must? And now I step into the ring. Must fight this match alone. The conscience is a heavy thing. When you must bear it on your own. Peace, then I'll take any. But I was born to fight. Now I'm the one against the many. And who's to say I'm right? We tell ourselves we're righteous. We say our cause is just. But when our weapons turn against us, should we do the things we must? So there you go. That was Embers of War. Yeah, I'm kind of pleased with it. The thing that I noticed after coming back to it after 24 hours after uploading it, and after the buzz of making song number 27 out of 50 for 5090 had worn off, it was like, yeah, it's too slow. It's too slow. And the verse, certainly the vocals in the first verse, was I even awake? I feel like I'm on tranquilizers for that, and maybe I was. Maybe I need to drink more coffee when I do lead vocals from now on. But Ryako Music says, I think the chorus is the strongest part of the strop. Totally agree. The chorus was the last part of the song that I wrote, and I wrote it after I knew what the song was about, whereas I was kind of feeling my way because I didn't want to make it spoilery and everything else. But the first line of the chorus, it was like, okay, yeah, that's the song. The chorus is the song. And once I'd gone that, it was sort of, yeah, rest of the song doesn't really live up to it. So this is one of the songs, and I quite often make them during 5090 and February album writing month as well, where it's like, yeah, that's okay, but if I'm going to put that on an album, it ain't going to sound like this. I am going to probably completely pull it apart and redo it. Ryako Music says, were you drunk? Actually, I kind of wasn't, because this was the middle of Friday. I think I was just tired. Still not sleeping well. I have to say, touch wood, and despite driving for 9 hours yesterday to go and see my siblings on the other side of the country, it feels like the elbow is beginning to heal. So there is a little guitar. There are 2 guitar tracks on this particular track. And that was kind of a minute and a half tops, because it is literally 45 seconds of guitar playing that I did one take for one side of the channel and one take for the other, and that was it. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. I'm not going to do any more guitar playing. But I haven't touched guitar since, and I think that is beginning to work. And yeah, Ryako Music says, for Christ's sakes, let it heal. Yeah, point taken. I actually had a really good night's sleep last night, and I think that was probably because the pain was beginning to ease off just generally. But I'm an old guy, you know, pain is just part of the deal. But so to return to the point in hand, listening to stuff. So I listened to this, and it's, well, what is it? It's 94 beats per minute, and that's too slow. I mean, if I play the first verse again, so let's play the first verse. I've seen whole planets burn. I've watched my comrades die. So yeah, I mean, it's not one of my finest vocal deliveries, let's be honest here. And I think if I was doing, if I'm going to revise this, it will probably be revised up. Oh, excuse me, tired. It will probably be revised up so that the BPM's 105, 110-ish. Make it a lot faster, which will also bring the length down, because at 5 minutes 30, there's an awful lot of pomp and circumstance, but does it justify 5.5 minutes? Frankly, not entirely sure it does. So speed it up, give it more energy, give me more energy, redo the vocals. At least with the synths and a lot of this stuff, they will just adapt to me changing the tempo. But things like the guitar will have to change. And will anything else have to change? No, is the simple answer. So it becomes a fairly easy thing to just dial up the tempo and redo the vocals. But that will take place at some other time. But listening to stuff, the comments that I've got back on this have been, "It's a really weird instrumentation on this." And it's like, well, yeah, normally it would have loads of guitars on it, but I'm trying to heal. So the substitute for the guitars is this Calorifer War Tuber plugin, which is, if I go back to the screen one, so you remember I was raving about Ploeg's Sforzando plugin and the Calorifer samples webpage. They have a whole bunch of different different free sample packs that you download, and then you just drop the SFZ file over the top of the Ploeg interface and it just loads it. And I really like the War Tuber. So it's a bunch of different voicings. So you've got 7 different ones. The Tuberborg synth is a bit too artificial, but the one that I ended up using, which was the Duo polyphonic, I really like. You remember last Thursday I was saying, not too sure about the Guitar Rig plugin. So I went back and completely changed how I used it, and I stuck with Guitar Rig, which is part of the Native Instruments Contact family, but I went instead for massive. Hang on, let's do this properly. Massive Wall of Rock setting, which basically mimics. It's a split A and B channel, and there's an emulation of an Ibanez tube screamer and something that looks suspiciously like a Marshall JCM 800 emulation, and a set of match cabinets for it. So it's fairly screamy, it's fairly metal, but it doesn't have the delay and the reverb to the level that last one does. So if I just play you the Guitar Rig soloed, listen, this is what it does to the tuba. And what does the tuba sound like without it? Well, I'm glad you asked. And combined, so Noirjah has just given me the emoji, and thank you for that. That's exactly what I was going for. It's metal tubas. Well, I mean, it's war tubas, so it's tuba as an offensive weapon. And I don't know if you noticed, but I also changed the main synth into something different. So it's now harpsichord battalion. So again, if I solo that and play that, this match up. So it's That tuba by itself sounds like old lady farts, says Ryako Music. But isn't that the fate of every tuba player? Array of Emotions says, with just the guitar effect, that riff kind of sounds like Smoke on the Water. Exactly! That was what I was going for. Yeah, and French Doja certainly agrees with me there. So, yeah, it's kind of trying to do stuff with stuff that I can't do at the moment, if you see what I mean. And that is actually quite an interesting creative challenge. You know, it's like trying to record Smoke on the Water when all you've got is a tuba and a harmonium, or even a melodica. Harmonium are the pedal things, aren't they, that Ivor Cutler used to swear at. Somebody actually reported overhearing Ivor Cutler having a blistering argument after one of his gigs, and they crept down to see who had pissed off Ivor Cutler so badly, and it turned out to be his harmonium. Isn't that lovely? Folks, if you are unaware of the legend that was Ivor Cutler, then you have to investigate. He was a very, very eccentric Scottish poet, come comedian, come songwriter, come performer, and I've got about 7 of his albums. He was on the Old Grey Whistle Test. Very, very funny guy. Sadly no longer with us, but if I could write 2 songs as good as the worst song that Ivor Cutler ever wrote, I'd be quids in, because he was an absolute genius. Anyway, squirreled again as forever. So that was Embers of War, and listening to it back, there are bits that work, and it would be nice to have more guitars. Let's just solo the guitars at the end. So that is my entire guitar playing output for the last week, and will probably just be the entire output of my guitar playing for the next week, which sucks, and I'm not happy about it. But as Mel says, you've got to let it heal. So that's what I'll be doing. Anyway, that is Embers of War. That's quite enough about that. Let's go instead to what I've been working on this afternoon. Ryako Music says, I didn't swear. Yeah, it's the term pimped. Apparently that sets Twitch's AutoMad off for some reason, because so the prompt that tells me what sort of thing that it disagreed with has disappeared, because I said, yeah, that's fine. So anyway, right, here we go. So as you can see, this is called Every Film Trailer Soundtrack Ever, and that's pretty much because of the Robert Pattinson Batman trailer that I watched this afternoon. So this is what I've come up with so far. that's basically what I've amused myself doing this afternoon. Array of Emotion says, where are the risers? Or are those not a thing anymore in trailers? They are absolutely a thing in trailers. This is as far as I've got. And I'm kind of happy with it up until about the sort of 50 seconds mark. And then it just all goes to pieces. So as the French Doge says, brap, because you've just got to have all the brass at the same time. And then at the same time, I'll probably bring in the cellos as a counterpoint that will be going brap, da, 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 da. You get the idea. It will just sound like every other trailer that has been released since Inception came out, really. It's funny, I was going back to the Art of the Score, I was listening to them analysing both Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 and talking about how much of an influence that had on cinema in general and visually in terms of cinema in general. But in terms of sonically, I think Inception has had as big an influence as the original Blade Runner had visually. It completely changed trailers. Although it's interesting, I found on YouTube one of the original trailers for a 1982-ish movie called Altered States. And the soundtrack to that trailer, although it's not actually part of, and how sad is this, John Corigliano's score for Altered States, I actually still have on vinyl because it is an astonishing score and was like nothing I'd ever heard up until that point. For a blockbuster movie that had William Hurt, Blair Brown, it was the first movie Drew Barrymore actually appeared in. She was like 5. And it's based on a Paddy Chayefsky novel about a guy who takes very serious drugs and gets in a sensory deprivation tank, and all sorts of interesting things happen. And the movie is completely bonkers because it was directed by Ken Russell, and it's still one of my favourite movies. But as I say, the trailer for it, you could take the soundtrack off that trailer for Altered States that came out in 1982 and stick it on the trailer for Inception, and nobody would notice the difference. Really interesting. It's like, huh? So whether Hans actually was watching that at some point and thought, oh, that's cool, who knows? It could just be coincidence, but it's a really interesting coincidence. So, yeah, on Twitter earlier, I basically asked various people on Twitter, okay, so movie trailer cliches, what do I need to add? And French Josie's going to love this because the first response I got was literally a man, brap. A man who has to fight, brap. So it has become that much of a cliche. How I'm gonna tidy it up, still kind of deciding. It's funny. What I really need, let me just play you the bass trombones because it's, again, this comes back to listening to what the instruments are doing, and half the time the tonality of the instrument is really good, but the rest of the time it's a bit pants. So let's just solo the legato and the staccatissimo bass trombones, and you can hear when it works and when it doesn't. So I'm good up to about then, I think. And you hear it, the bike just goes. So, is it a velocity thing? Am I just, I was pretty consistent in terms of the velocity, which is quite impressive. So, yeah, it needs more bite. The French Joe says the bass drop was really good. I'd eyes a riser just after that. Yeah, it's dynamics, isn't it? The Noajai says, though it would be interesting to give those movie soundtrack the Pink Floyd Alice in Wonderland treatment. Oh, yes, absolutely. Riaka Music says, change up the chord progression, give your listeners brass breaks. Yeah, I think, as I say, what I'll probably do is instead the brass will start fighting with a counterpoint, which will be either synths or synths with strings. And I'm trying to think which is it's one of the Inception pieces of music. Hans Zimmer actually uses that. So he establishes the rhythm with the brass, and then you get the counterpoint working against it. The Inception score is one of the best movie scores ever written. And if you don't agree with that, fight me. The number of times I have listened to that particular score, I bought the soundtrack CD. I am still mystified as to why there isn't a 5.1 surround mix of the score on the Blu-ray release of the film, because it cries out for it. There are bits of it, but there is not the whole thing, and it just annoys me. It's not quite as bad as having to wait 30 years for the Vangelis soundtrack to Blade Runner to finally be released, but it's not far off that, because it's one of those pieces of music you really need to have enveloping you and surrounding you. Rajai says, I just saw the Big Life of Brian production last night. They were in a big theatre, fancy dress. I cannot remember it. Many years ago, you'll love this, many years ago, I was doing physics at Imperial College in London and hated it because everybody had told me that physics was what I was good at and that I needed to do that. And I got into Imperial College, which at the time was, and still is, one of the leading physics universities in the world. Like one of our lecturers had just won the Nobel Prize, as you do, for unifying the weak and the electromagnetic, the weak nuclear force and the electromagnetic force together. A guy called Abdus Salam. And I was feeling fairly miserable in the Students' Union on a Friday afternoon after having finished my lectures for the week. And a guy came in and said, Mrs. Jones in biology has got some tickets for her husband's premiere or preview of his new movie at the Fox Theatre in Soho Square. Anybody want tickets? And it was like, yeah, I'd quite like to spend a couple of hours in the cinema this afternoon. So Mrs. Jones turned out to be Terry Jones's wife. And the movie was a very, very rough cut of Life of Brian that went on for over 3.5 hours. So there are all sorts of scenes that didn't make it into the final cut of the movie. And I still remember Terry Jones and Michael Palin actually turned up at the screening to talk about what the show or what the film would be like. Terry Jones apologising because none of Terry Gilliam's footage animations was in existence yet because he hadn't done them. So they'd literally scribbled sort of biro animations on the film. And I still remember Terry Jones, walking down to the front and tripping over my foot because I'd been slouched in one of the seats in the Fox Theatre. And I am outraged that Disney, who now own that theatre, have applied to basically gut it and demolish it and replace it with something else, which should not be allowed to happen because it is part of movie history and has been for the best part of a century. And the fact that Disney want to, and they've already removed all the 20th Century Fox signage off the front of it, which, as it's a listed building, as far as I know, they are not supposed to be allowed to do. So, I am not a Disney fan, as you may have noticed. It was funny yesterday because my siblings were all raving about the Disney Channel and watching all the Marvel movies and all the Star Wars movies on demand and raving about The Mandalorian, and it was like, not seen it, not going to see it, not paying Disney a penny of my money. So how did we that surfaced some interesting emotions, didn't it? So back to this. Going to have more strings, I think. I'm beginning, if you go back to this, you can see there's huge chunks of brass, and the synths at the beginning, and there's a little bit of cellos at the beginning, but that's about it. And that's kind of all I've got round to so far, so there will be a lot more. And as I say, I think I'm happy with it up to about the 50-second mark. The cellos and the pianos, well, it's actually 3 layered pianos. So what have we got? We've got one of Ableton's internal pianos, I think. Yeah, Worley Vancouver Ash. So it's one of Ableton Live's internal MIDI piano instruments. And then there's the Arturia American Old Radio, so it's a grand piano in a large studio with fairly wet mix in terms of reverb. And then the other one, I think, is another version of piano. Yeah, so it's the German grand piano. So they layer together nicely. They've all got different acoustic and reverb presets on them, but there is also, what have we got? There's also quite a lot of... Or did I? It looks like I got rid of it. I'd also got quite a lot of reverb in that, but I think I just dropped it all into Realm. But that synth drop is rather nice, and again, that's from Massive. It's called Fallen Angelinas. There are about 3 different ones, but that one, it was like, I've got to use that, because it is such a cliche of, it's when the movie drops into slow motion, isn't it? Or when the trailer drops into slow motion. So that's definitely staying in. But I've been investigating free sample packs today, and I've downloaded about 1.5 gigs. And I came up with 3 for the initiating action, if you like, which is, so there's from the Chard kit within Ableton itself. I spun it out and warped it so it's a lot longer than it was to start with. Then what else we've got? We've got an explosive grenade. Good evening, Mr. Knights. We've got a grenade going off with a lovely reverb tail. And then a hit explosion which is this one. So the Hitsplosion's got the nice high frequency in the transients. The Explosive Grenade's got all the reverb and the tails and the ambience and everything else, and the kick has basically got the grunt of shifting air for the original explosion, and all together with a whole bunch of processing, which is here. And I wanted the processing to be parallel so that it didn't muffle the sound itself. So there's literally 5 tracks within Ableton just for one bang. So I start off by taking the audio from the group into track 6, squeeze it with a bit of compression, then use Ableton's glitch delay, bit of beat repeat air pusher, which messes things up and chops it about and does strange things. And then, of course, because everything is all about the reverb when I'm involved, I've got Ableton's 6-second reverb. So altogether, it sounds like this. The French Doge says, cool guys don't look at explosions. Noir says, and they walk away slowly. And it's funny, but watching How to Train Your Dragon this afternoon, they actually poke fun at that trope, because Astrid does that at the beginning of the film, where the house behind her blows up and she just walks away without looking in slow motion and flicks the hair out of her left eye as she walks away. Puts on sunglasses is the next level up. Although I don't think anybody will do the walking away while it all kicks off behind you, like Heath Ledger did as the Joker in the Batman film. Just extraordinary. I would just have been turning around and going, holy shit, that's amazing. But that's me. So that's kind of what I've come up with this so far. As I say, still not entirely happy with it, but the thing is, every time I listen to it, I will hear new stuff. Noisha says, I forget the hair flip. Yeah, oh, to have hair to flip. Every time I listen to it, I think, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. But turn the fan off. Yeah, it's to come back to listening to stuff. It's what can I hear in this? So if I play the whole thing again, it's like what's standing out for me. So ignore the count-in drums because they'll go. So there's a bit of atonality between the cellos, although it could possibly be the basses and the piano at about bar 8. So I'm hearing that now. There. And it kind of pulls itself together again by bar 11, bar 12. That sounds pretty good to me. Right, so at bar 16, I've got the brass kicking in, but it's not enough of a kick. So, to me, I need to really look at bars sort of 8 to 11. There's something not working there. And then at bar 16, I need much more of an impact when the brass comes in, because the brass isn't aggressive enough. It will be aggressive enough for maybe 8 bars of what I've got. So what have we got here? So, and again, I mean, I'm using double tenor and tenor trombones for staccatissimo and legato. I'm using double bass trombones the same way, legato and staccatissimo, and I'm using again the same for the tubas. So I've got 6 bass tracks. May well dig out the I may well dig out the wall tuba and add to these. So if we start from bar 16. So I can probably get away with just that, the first 4 bars of that as they are. But after 4 bars, that's going to need more. And I think I will probably go back to the synths and come up with something raspy and aggressive that I can drop in over that, and then probably leave that for the chord change, which if I play that, so there's a slight lift, and then it drops back, and then it all goes a bit pear-shaped. So I may even just delete everything from, what's that, bar 28 onwards. Not entirely sure, because I kind of liked the tubas on their own. The tubas on their own seem to work, so that's what this is. So the timing of that is all over the place, isn't it? Let's just fix that. How's that? The other thing that I'm kind of hearing now is that is Twin Peaks, isn't it? Is that Laura's theme? I think it might be. It's certainly reminiscent of Laura's theme. But so there are things that, Riaco Music says it's totally Twin Peaks. It is, isn't it? Although I don't think Angelo Badalamenti ever used tubas, so maybe I've got a fighting chance. But it needs to be more aggressive, and it needs to up the ante. So I think that section, literally from here onwards, I'm probably going to nuke and do something instead. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. I will save this as a version of the file. Ryako Music says it was low synths, right? He was all about synths. Well, it's interesting. I mean, he used a lot of synths, yes, but if you watch any of the making of compositional things on YouTube that he's done, the main compositional tool that he used was a Fender Rhodes 73 stage piano. So he was all about the electric piano, and he wrote pretty much everything on that electric piano, and then used the synths when the electric piano wasn't suitable. So maybe I should dig out the Fender Rhodes. As it happens, because I have the Arturia collection, I'm pretty sure if I find an empty synth track, what's on that? There's nothing on that. So if I go back to plugins, Arturia, yeah, there we go. So I can just drop this in. And there we have it. The legendary Fender Rhodes. So if I unsolo the tubers, where are they? There they are. So if I click those, bring them back. So now we have and there are loads of different presets I can have. So you've got a bit of Led Zeppelin, which is very quiet. Let's turn it up a bit. So there are some lovely samples on here. Coffee Time. That's kind of Twin Peaks. Do you think the coffee might be a reference to Agent Cooper, perhaps? So anyway, there will probably be Fender Rhodes Type 73 piano on this at some point. But for the moment, I'm just going to save that, which takes quite a while. There we go. So let's just go to a new set on this. One thing that I have done this week is that in creating these streams, and I'm only streaming at 720p, mainly because this camera and the Zoom Q8 over there might actually be very good at shooting video in high definition. In fact, the camera that you're looking at me now is a 4K camera, but it only streams via its USB port at 720p, so that's kind of what I'm sticking at. The other thing is that by streaming at 720p, I'm not actually stressing the internet connection that I've got here very much. So that gives me enough buffer, if you like, to be largely glitch free. Something which, I'm kind of hoping pays off, that you get a decent viewing experience out of this. But I was using the Zoom Q2N here to record thunderstorms last week, because we got, as you remember from the track that I did, which was called, he said, just checking my profile to remember what track it was that I wrote less than a week ago. It was called Built on Sand. So I did a track called Built on Sand, which was using sound of a thunderstorm recorded on a Tascam DR40. While I was recording that, I was also videoing using this Zoom Q2N in 4K. At which point I realized just how much disk storage shooting in 4K actually takes, because that thing had has a 128 gig micro SD card in it that I filled up in just over 5 minutes. At which point I thought, yeah, 4K video is nice, but it's not really practicable for the sort of stuff that I'm doing in here. And streams like this, even at 720p, a stream like this, when I upload the edited version to YouTube, ends up being between 4 and 6 gigabytes. So I'm doing that twice a week. It tends to build up on your hard disk. And the hard disk, of which I have several in this machine because it's my studio machine, the hard disk that I was using to store my video in was starting to complain that it was getting full up. The fortunate thing is that hard disks seem to have come down in price rather significantly. So I have swapped the 500 gig hard drive that I'm using for all these resources with a 4 terabyte hard drive, which I put in the machine this week. And I don't know if I've done something different or if it's just that it's not the middle of a heat wave here anymore, but my machine's got two honking big 3-inch, 5-inch fans on the front of it. They haven't kicked in once this evening, and looking at the thermometer in front of me, it's still only 28 degrees in here. It's maybe the worst of the summer is over. Who knows? Anyway, to return to the subject of listening to what I was doing, what I want to do is go back to a track that I actually did live for Formstock a couple of weeks ago. But what I want to do is very quickly go through listening to the vocals, excruciatingly embarrassing as that might be, because what I want to do with them is drop different compression on it. Because what I want to do, and I've been listening to a lot of people's stuff on 5090 this week. I've been doing my best to comment, and I've done quite a lot of commenting, but I know I need to do an awful lot more. But in this vocal submix at the moment, I've got, as you can see, a mouth D-click processor in there, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm also going to get rid of the compressor that I've got on at the moment, which is a very nice free compressor that I got when I bought my Native Instruments audio interface, the Complete Audio 6 that I'm using at the moment. So I'm going to kill that. And I'm also going to kill the Nectar 3 isotope vocal processing plugin. So if I now play, let's say, the chorus to push my button, this is just the vocals effectively as the microphone heard them. Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button. So the first thing you can hear is that they're all over the place. They're not even synced. But we're not going to fuss with that at the moment. They're good enough for what I want to do. So let's just play that again. Now I've seized power while you have nothing. So there's no EQ, there's nothing on that at all. That is literally how it came off the mixing desk into the DAW. So what I want to do is, you remember a couple of weeks ago I was talking about compressors and how compressors alter things. That what a compressor does is it limits the highest intensity signals, but it reduces the dynamic range. So the difference between the quietest thing that you do and the loudest thing that you do gets smaller. And what that effectively means is that the quieter sort of stuff you can bring up in the mix without it getting completely over the top with the loud stuff. And there are quite a few songs that I've listened to this week on 5090 where just having a bit of compression on the vocals would really have helped people, because the mic was struggling to pick up the really quiet stuff, but when the people were really belting it out, the microphone, you could hear the microphone going, not happy with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop a what Ableton calls a gentle squeeze. So this is a very, very, I mean, the ratio, you remember we were talking about ratios of how much the input signal has to be for the output signal to be 1. So a ratio of 1.88 to 1 means that when the input signal that's coming in is 1.88 times louder than the output signal. So if I leave that disabled, which is just clicking on that yellow button, and then as I play it, I'll bring it in.
Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button.
So apart from anything else you can hear, I've got hay fever at this point because my nose is bunged up. But
now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button.
And you can begin to hear some of my breath noise as well. So I'm going to get rid of the gentle squeeze. I'm going to go for something a bit more aggressive. In fact, I'm going to use something that is called the mildly aggressive preset. So we've gone up from a ratio of 1.88 to 1 to 4 to 1. And listen what a difference that makes on the vocals. I'll start with it disabled.
Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour.
So you're probably saying, well, that's not a big a deal. It doesn't sound that much difference. But look down here. The volume is actually set, or the gain is actually set at minus 8.26 decibels. So if I double click that so that it's back at 0 decibels, which is what the last compressor was, now listen what it sounds like.
Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button.
So now we can hear quite a lot of breath noise. We can also hear a bit of buzz in the mic mechanic that I was using to record the vocals with a bit of processing. The mic mechanic does things like a little bit of compression, a bit of de-essing, which is getting rid of the sibilance in the voice, and also doing some very, very small EQ tweaks. And joy of joys, this week I actually got the TC Helicon voice software that talks with my mic mechanic to talk to my mic mechanic. I've reset the mic mechanic software and it's got rid of the buzz, because as you can hear, if I turn right, that's the mic mechanic turned all the way up. No buzz. It's gone. So quite what had happened last time, I don't know, but I got rid of it. So this is clearly recorded before I revamp the software. So now I'm going to go to brute compression. So now rather than a 1.88 to 1 ratio or a 4 to 1 ratio, we're up to 12.6 to 1. And if I reset that, you see there's no knee at all. So when this kicks in, it kicks in. Listen what the vocals sound like now.
Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button.
So it's a lot more energetic, it's a lot more aggressive, it's also a lot noisier. And if we go right to the very ludicrous extremes and drop a brick wall compressor on it, so this is now effectively a limiter. The ratio is infinity to 1. If the input signal gets to a certain point, it is never going to get any louder than that. And brick wall compressors are really useful things. I use them an awful lot on guitar to bring out ridiculously distorted guitar tones. You can get some great rhythm guitar noises by dropping a brick wall compressor on an otherwise very humble sounding guitar track. But listen what it does to the vocals.
Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button.
So there's an awful lot more body in the vocals than there was with nothing. If I play it without anything, listen to the difference.
Now I've seized power while you have nothing. This is my hour. I'm gonna push my button.
So getting rid of the mouth clicks, I have a plugin for that, and I also have a plugin for a bunch of other stuff. But just dropping a compressor on your vocals will give them more body, will give them more roundness, and probably a better, flatter EQ curve than just recording them with the mic. And in fact, although you can't see it really from the angle that I've got this camera set up, the mic channels on my mixer actually have inbuilt compression on them. So at the moment I'm speaking to you with the compressor about halfway up on the Shure SM7's feed, so I can turn it all the way down, and it's subtle. It doesn't do an awful lot, certainly that I can hear at this end. You might disagree. Or I can wind the compressor all the way up. And does that make any difference? Possibly not. Bit loud. I can see I'm way up into the red there, so let's turn that down. So if you're going to use one effect on your tracks, then please consider using compression. And if you want to move up from just using Audacity to using a free DAW, then I would say get yourself a copy of Cakewalk by BandLab. I say this every week, but you will find that you can actually record a piece of vocals on track 1 with, so if I just record some vocals. Hello, hello, hello. So we've got some vocals. Hello, hello, hello. And it's even picking up the click track in the background. And you'll notice, and you may find, well, you'll find them in Cakewalk under Dynamics, that Cakewalk has its own compressor. There you go. How sweet is that? So you've got all the controls that I was talking about, the attack and the release, threshold. The ratio here is 1:1, so let's wind that up to 5:1. Play it again. Hello, hello, hello. And you can also use it as a gate, which means that it will cut out sounds below that threshold, which gets rid of, or should get rid of, the click track. Hello, hello, hello. Nearly there. You can hear it's picking up some of it. Let's take it down to 25. Hello, hello, hello. So that will help you tidy up your vocals an awful lot without much effort, and will actually give them more body and a thicker sound. So well worth doing. What I will probably do in the weeks in September before 5090 closes is I may actually just go through Cakewalk. If you want to get yourself your own copy of Cakewalk, and we'll go through some simple recordings together, and you can see how to use it. And all right, it's picked up all the plugins from all the stuff that I have, that I've acquired over 10, 15 years of doing this, including Ozone's very, very sexy and very, very swish vocal processors. But you don't need stuff like that. You can do much better with something like Cakewalk than the mess that we made with Audacity last weekend. Let's leave that for the moment. And like I say, I played with Waveform this week, and would I recommend it? In truth, no. It just doesn't make itself clear what it's supposed to do. I mean, it looks nice and the dark theme's nice, but stick with Cakewalk. Cakewalk's free. It's easy to use. It's easy to get along with. And all you need to do is just install a copy of BandLab Assistant, and it will help you create everything that you need and download the apps that you need to work on a DAW for nothing. I'm flagging a bit at this point. We've been going for an hour and a half. I am going to knock it on the head today. Still getting twinges with the elbow, but hopefully those will change. Riaka Music says, let it heal. Yes, I'm doing that. I have ordered myself some more Ibuleve, which is sort of ibuprofen gel. So I'll be availing myself of that this week, because my Voltarol's nearly run out. I might get some more Voltarol as well. But so it goes. I got a free eye test on Wednesday, so new glasses, here I come. But I will be back at the usual time on Thursday on my Twitch stream, when hopefully I will be a bit more together. Hopefully I will have got a more cinematic trailer soundtrack for you. Hopefully I'll have some more music for you. Hopefully I will have a bunch of stuff that I can demo, but I think I'm still going to stay off the guitar for a bit. So until Thursday, wherever you are, thanks for tuning in. Have a good night. And until next Thursday, stay well, stay safe, and please stay sane. And I'll see you next time.